Hey physics fans, here's question number 2 on acceleration, but vector acceleration. And we have to subtract vectors as we'll find out. Here it is. The initial velocity is 3 meters per second south, and the final velocity is 4 meters per second west, and it took 0.25 seconds. Sounds very simple, physics 11. It's not. It's physics 12. It's right up into that realm because we have the initial speed as 3 meters per second south, so it looks like that. That's the vector for it. And then we have the final speed as 4 meters per second west. And when we have to calculate the acceleration is the change in velocity over time, which is Vf minus Vi all over t. Not 2, t. Okay, but these are vectors. These are vectors, and we need to subtract them, and it's in 2 dimensions now, not physics 11 1 dimensions. How do you subtract vectors? It's challenging. We will look at Vf minus Vi, and as I stated already, we actually make this a plus and make that a negative Vi. So we add a negative Vi. That's how we get away with it because we know how to add vectors. So we add a negative Vi. So what is negative Vi? If Vi is 3 meters per second south, then negative Vi is 3 meters per second north. So then it becomes a little simpler. Here is Vi is 3, negative Vi, sorry, and we have Vf, which is 4. So we add the 4 west and the 3 north, and we get the resultant vector. Let's just get it to draw the resultant vector. Pythagoras says 3 squared plus 4 squared, all square rooted, is 5. And we also need this angle, that angle at the base of that green, because that's how we label a vector, right? If a vector is over like this, like 5, like that 5 is, we have the crosshairs at the base, and we want that angle. And that angle we get by the inverse tan, the tan negative 1 of 3 divided by 4, Mr. Calculator, inverse tan of 3 divided by 4 is 36.87. 36.87 degrees. And that will, by the way, be north of west once we have the heading in there. So the change in velocity is a vector, and that vector is 5 meters per second, and it is at 36.87 degrees north of west. And the acceleration is the change in velocity divided by the time, and that change in velocity is 5, with all that other stuff that I just wrote down, all over 0.25 in a quarter of a second. Okay, so 5 divided by a quarter will be 20. Well, let's just make sure. 5 divided by 0.25 is 20. So the acceleration is 20 meters per second squared at that same angle, 36.87 degrees north of west. Dun, da, da, da. It is a little bit harder than physics 11. In physics 11, it would have been just 4 subtract 3, which is 1, divided by that, which would be 4. So I will get on my physics 12 quiz and tests from you guys, I will. People will write down 4 meters per second squared, and it's because they just subtracted them, not knowing that they're in actually not subtractable directions. They're in right angle directions, so you can't really subtract them. You have to Pythagorize them to subtract them. And then you have to find the negative. It's good. So I look for that 4 and going, physics 11, let's welcome them to physics 12. There's the answer. Thank you very much. Enjoy.